Now to that breaking news. An exclusive ABC News investigation out this morning reports that the National Center for Medical Intelligence warned the military and the White House late last year about the spread of coronavirus in China. Our senior White House correspondent Cecilia Vega joins us now with the details. Good morning, Cecilia.
Hey, Michael, good morning to you. So it was just yesterday that President Trump said no one had even heard of the virus 2 months ago. But we are now learning that as far back as late November, American military medical investigators overseas sounded the alarm to officials right here at home about a contagion that was sweeping through Wuhan. Those concerns that the virus could be devastating were detailed in a report, and multiple sources have described that report to our team. Now, it's not just that. There were repeated briefings for policymakers across the federal government through December, and by early January, the warnings made it into the president's daily briefing. But it wasn't until late January that President Trump made his first public comments about this virus, saying that he wasn't at all worried about it and that he had it totally under control. Of course, this is now raising serious questions about whether the administration could have ramped up the response efforts before it actually did. Michael, so far, no comment from the Pentagon or officials at the White House.
Well, we know you're going to stay on them today, Cecilia, but we also heard the president, in the middle of his pandemic, he threatened to cut off funding to the World Health Organization. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, he did. You're right, Michael. And it's because he says he's angry with the group, saying that they've been too China-centric during this outbreak. And he said point blank, we're going to put a very powerful hold on the money given to them. But then just a few minutes later, he seemed to backtrack, saying that he's now strongly considering it, Michael. But if this does happen, it would be huge. The U.S. is the largest single contributor to the WHO. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, Michael.
And not long ago, he was praising the WHO. Thank you so much, Cecilia.
We are following this breaking news, startling new revelations about when and what President Trump allegedly knew about the coronavirus. According to a new book by Bob Woodward, the president knew of the dangers of the coronavirus weeks before the first death in the U.S. And instead of warning the American people, the president decided to play the virus down. Woodward recorded 2 separate conversations he had with the president for the book. One from February, the other from March. Here's some of what the president told him as obtained by CNN.
It goes through air, Bob. That's always tougher than the touch. You know, the touch, you don't have to touch things, right? But the air, you just breathe the air. That's how it's passed. And so that's a very tricky one. That's a very delicate one. It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus. This is more deadly. This is 5 per, this is 5% versus 1% and less than 1%, so this is deadly stuff. Well, I think, Bob, really, to be honest with you.
Sure, I want you to.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Yes,
because I don't want to create a panic.
Bob Woodward will appear on 60 Minutes this Sunday, September 13th, for his first interview about the revelations in his latest book. And you can watch that Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on CBS. And Paula Reed joins us now from the White House. Paula, welcome. You asked White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany about the Woodward quotes. What did she have to say?
Well, the question for the White House is whether the president intentionally misled the American public about the threat of COVID. This is a pandemic that has now taken the lives of nearly 200,000 Americans, and it appears, based on these recordings, that the president was deliberately downplaying this. Now, the White House press secretary insisted that the president has not lied to the American people. We followed up several times. She insists that he was just trying to keep the calm. It is unclear, though, how distorting the facts that he was receiving from his health advisors, distorting the facts that he, according to these interviews, were receiving from his national security advisors. It is unclear how that was supposed to lead to calm.
And when you set these comments of the president up and compare them with what he said publicly about the virus, how do they compare?
That's right. Back in February, he's apparently telling Woodward that this is more deadly than the flu, even though around that time he was tweeting that it was actually under control and that it was not worse than the flu. And it took him about a month and a half before he declared a national emergency. Once again, the first interview that I'm referring to here happened in early February. It continues to appear that February is sort of a lost month when it comes to the Trump administration's response to COVID. I've asked the president, I've asked administration officials, what did you do in the month of February? And it appears even though the president was being clearly told by his advisors that this was a deadly threat, one of the biggest challenges he was going to face, that the administration did not take any real concrete action during the month of February and continue to, in the president's own words, play it down.
Paula Reed, thank you for giving us some background on these new revelations in Woodward's book. We really appreciate it.
We have lost nobody to coronavirus in the United States. Nobody. Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number in the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful.
If it ends up that Biden wins in November, I hope he doesn't. I don't think he will. But if he does, I guarantee you the week after the election, suddenly all those Democratic governors, all those Democratic mayors will say, everything's magically better. Go back to work, go back to school. Suddenly the problems are solved.
If you don't test, you don't have any cases. If we stop testing right now, we'd have very few cases, if any. This is going to go away without a vaccine. It's going to go away, and we're not going to see it again.
Donald Trump tells more lies and falsehoods than any president in either party in history.
World. We're going to beat this coronavirus or whatever you want to call it, and we're going to beat it soundly. So many things have happened. If you look at the therapeutics, which I'm taking right now, some of them, and others are coming out soon that are looking like, frankly, they're miracles, if you want to know the truth.